right hand, please. Do you solemnly state the testimony you may give and the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please have a seat in the witness stand. And for the record, say and spell your first and last name, please.
Henry Mayo.
Spell it, please. Spell it.
Henry, Henry, Mayer, Meyer.
See, please.
Thank you. Sir, how are you employed?
I'm the head of HR for ICANN,
For ICANN?
the Internet Corporation of Assigned Names and Numbers. So we manage the domain names to make the Internet work.
Okay. How many years have you been there?
I've been there since 1st of October 2018.
What was your prior employment?
I was with Coty.
And what was your position with Coty?
Before I left, I was Senior Director for HR for the North America division.
And was it your job to run the local HR team here in California in the Woodland Hills office?
It was at the time, yep.
Okay. And what were you responsible for?
Things changed, but during the Sementilli case, I was the head of HR, so I ran the full function of HR, everything from the employee life cycle, from hiring to leaving the company, retirement benefits, local matters, recruitment, training, employee relations, the whole gamut.
Okay. Compensation as well as retirement?
Only locally, but there's, of course, the head office would run those processes, of course.
Okay. And at the time that you came to, well, when did you come to Coty? What year?
I joined, I was transferred by Procter & Gamble, who owned the company at the time, in July 2011. And I'd moved from Boston to LA.
So you were with P&G prior to coming to LA?
Correct.
All right. And Wella, at the time that you came to LA, was a division of P&G?
Correct.
Procter & Gamble,
Yep.
yes?
Yep.
And at some point, Wella was bought out by Coty?
Correct.
That was in 2016?
2016, yes.
Okay. And did you supervise other individuals in the HR division?
The HR team reported to me, so yes, I did. A number of people, I'm trying to remember, there must have been about eight of us, about something like that.
Okay. Was one of those individuals a gal by the name of Janet Cover?
She was, yep.
You want to have a photograph of Ms. Cover maybe marked as People's 100? Showing you People's 100. Do you recognize what you see here?
I do.
Is that indeed Janet Cover?
That is Janet, that's Janet Cover.
Okay. And you supervised her?
Yes.
And did you also work with Tracy Rakovich, who was in the New York office?
I did.
Okay. How many years did you work for, whether it was P&G, Wella, or Coty altogether?
A total of 14 years.
Okay. How many years with P&G?
12. So 2 of those with Coty, yep.
The last 2?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
Did you know somebody by the name of Fabio Sementilli?
I did.
And showing you People's 13, do you recognize the individual that you see here?
I do. That's Fabio.
Okay. And did you work with him in the Woodland Hills office?
I did.
Approximately when did you meet Fabio?
I transferred from Boston. I was head of the HR for Gillette's manufacturing, and I moved here in 2014, July 2014.
So that was approximately
That's
the
the
time
first.
that you met him?
Correct.
Was he already with Wella when you came?
He was.
Okay. And did you assist Fabio with his transfer from Canada to the United States?
He was already working here, but he was on a green card and he localized, to get his green card, support him in those processes, I helped that. Yep.
Okay. And did you work under, when you first came, under Sally Schoen?
Did he work under?
Yes.
Yes, he did.
And then subsequent to that, Fabio took over Sally's job?
Correct.
Okay. And the two of you worked together, is that right?
Yes.
You were part of his leadership team?
I was on the team, same as we had a common CEO.
Did you have occasion to meet his wife?
Never. A couple of times in work, social functions, 2 to 3 times maximum.
How about trips, like to Hawaii, like
There was a
trendsetters?
sales award trip, and I was lucky enough to go with it. So that was Hawaii, I think.
Okay. Do you see her here in court today?
I do.
Can you identify her, please, for the record by pointing her out or describing what she's wearing?
I see her right there.
Thank you. Had you ever been to the Sementilli home before Fabio's murder?
No.
Okay. On the night of January 23rd, were you contacted by the CEO, Sal Macheri?
Yes, it was 7 in the evening. I'd left the office already, and he called me.
Okay. And did you meet with him in the parking lot?
Yes. I came back to the office to meet with him.
Got a photograph of Mr. Macheri who remarked as People's 101.
All right.
Showing you People's 101. Do you recognize
I
this
do,
film?
that's so.
Showing you Exhibit 91. Do you know this person?
I do, David Diaz.
And were both of them working in the Woodland Hills office with you?
Yes.
All right. And did the three of you, along with Bob Lucian, go that night to the street where the Sementilli home was located?
We did.
Okay. After that night, was it your responsibility to set up various financial plans for the Sementilli family?
As HR, yes, it was my responsibility. I mean, it wasn't my responsibility to set things up. It was making sure payments that were due were processed. But I did, in fact, set up some things specifically for them.
Did you initiate some new policy within the company
I did.
based on this particular case of
Yes.
Fabio's murder? And did some of those things you initiated become then policy for North America?
It was agreed to become global policy, or North America policy.
All right. In terms of what you did in this case to assist the defendant, could those things have been handled by way of phone call?
Yeah. I mean, the policy stuff obviously was internal, explained her benefits and what happens and support. That's easily done on the phone, email even.
Rather than handle things by phone call, did you go to the Sementilli home on a couple of occasions?
I did.
Okay. On a few days after the murder, on January 26th, did you go to the Sementilli home along with Janet Cover?
I did.
And what was your purpose in going there that day?
I went personally to, again, see how she was doing and also to give her a breakdown of what benefits she could expect following Fabio's death, and really just to help her through the process. A lot of those were estimates at the time, but I detailed it as much as possible and said what we're going to do to finalize some of the others.
Okay. And did you explain to the defendant that as the head of HR that you were going to prepare certain information or documentation for her in order to understand all the benefits that Fabio had?
Well, we were going to do some work on it because some of it was from a previous employer because we were divested. and it was cross-border. Some of it was in Canada, so we had to reach out. So it's just walking her through those and getting the contacts for her.
When you say previous employer, you're referring to P&G.
P&G, yep.
And so, did you attempt to give an estimated value of the various benefits that would be coming to her and her family?
Insofar as possible, there were some things we could do, others we couldn't, but at least I could say that's a line item that we need to figure out still.
Okay. And did that include giving her an estimate of the value of the life insurance that Fabio had purchased?
Of the total policy, yes.
Did that also include the value of Fabio's 401k plan?
Yes.
And did you also review with her various stock options that belong to Fabio?
Correct.
Did you also review with her P&G's profit sharing and savings plan?
Yes.
And did you also research various contacts for P&G for Fabio's prior employer?
I did.
Okay. And did you reach out yourself to P&G to advise them of the circumstances of what had happened to Fabio in order to assist the defendant?
I spoke to speak to P&G's head office in the U.S. In Cincinnati, Ohio, and then subsequently also to their team members in Toronto, in Canada.
Did you also review with the defendant Fabio's international stock ownership plan?
I did.
And did you do the same with P&G Canada, also Fabio's prior employer?
Yes.
All right. And did you also notify them of the circumstances of what had happened in order to trigger the sale of any shares in Fabio's international stock ownership plan, or ISOP?
Correct. I did. I can't remember if it was COSI or P&G or both. I think what they needed was evidence of death, so they needed death certificates. So we had to send that as well, I believe.
Okay. And did you also explain to the defendant at that time how the company, through you, were going to provide support?
Yes.
And what did you explain to her? What was that going to include or look like?
We were, and this comes subsequently to the policies we created, but we, to support her through the death, we agreed to extend or continue his salary payment. He was killed in 23rd January, I believe. And we said we'd extend it to the end of June. And obviously, because of the family situation and the children and whatnot, and Monica herself, we also agreed to extend the health care support that we provided, so her health insurance.
Okay. So in terms of the salary for 6 months, approximately how much money are we talking about?
It was about 110,000.
Gross?
Gross, yep.
Okay. And so therefore, she would be getting the same amount of money as if Fabio was still alive?
No change. That's exactly the same, yep, until the end of June.
And did you also tell the defendant that you were going to pay out any vacation that had accrued, that Fabio had accrued, in terms of money?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Was that something that was unusual?
It's unusual because normally you have to, that wasn't normal policy. So he'd accrued, I think it was 53 hours or something, so we'd paid that as well.
So approximately how much money are we talking there?
I'm thinking it was about 5, something like that.
56.88 maybe?
That sounds right.
And what else did you tell the defendant that you were going to have the company pay for?
We also took exceptional treatment of him because he was Canadian. His home country is Canada. He'd localized in the U.S. So we said, look, it's your choice, but if you want to repatriate his body to Canada, we set up a process to fund that. which I believe was taken up in the end as well.
Okay.
Sorry,
When you say repatriation, you mean the cost of sending Fabio's body back home.
correct.
That was a new policy that you instituted as well?
Yes.
All right. And what about support for the family in the aftermath?
During the whole mourning period, whatever you want to call it, there was a lot of support going there. We provided a lot of food and drink for them. We supported family coming in from Canada. We had them pick up at the airport. We supported transports. After the funeral, there at the wake, we funded that event as well. That was probably about $9,000 or $10,000. We did the food, we did the even down to renting chairs and tables.
Okay. So basically,
and transport for the family. Yep, catered event.
That was the event that occurred on January 29th after the viewing at a funeral home?
Yes.
All right. And did you assist with setting up those arrangements?
Yep.
Okay. And what about things like a car loan? Since he was an expat, how did that work?
During his period as an expat, because you don't have a credit history in the U.S., you're coming from a foreign country, he is provided with a loan to purchase a car. He pays the company back. I think it is it's either 60 or 72 months. I believe it's 60 months. At the time of his death, he had an amount of $9,000 owing on the loan, and we wrote that off as well. And essentially, we took a principle-based approach to the policies. We said, he's a very senior guy, but we wanted him, the reason they became policies, we wanted to ensure everyone who goes through these events in the future could be treated the same way. So not to make exceptions, and we wanted to be generous with that policy.
All right. And then subsequent to the viewing and wake, did you go again to the defendant's home with Janet Cover around February 9th?
Yes.
And did you provide the defendant with a detailed breakdown of Fabio's benefits?
I did, insofar as the numbers that were known. Some things sort of determined. The other important aspects of it is some of those personal details I couldn't directly access. She had to do it. So, for example, she had to. We gave her phone numbers and contacts of people in Canada, the benefits people, the insurers, and so on. So there's a list of contacts and some of the breakdowns of information we had.
Very good. Your Honor, I have a document labeled Fabio Sementilli's Estimated Benefits by Henry Mayo. Could it be marked, please, as People's 102?
Yes.
Showing you Exhibit 102. Is this a document that you provided to the defendant February 9th, 2017?
Yes.
And on this particular document, at the very far left, did you provide contact information for MetLife and P&G, Monica Sementilli, who I think administered some of the pension benefits in Canada,
Yep.
Sun Life? Yes?
Yep.
And did you also then provide, at least as far as what you were able to identify, a chart that indicated what type of benefits Fabio had, such as life insurance, accidental death and dismemberment, any supplemental policies, restricted stock units, stock options, profit sharing, ISOPs, things of that nature?
I did, and the reason there's question marks is because some of that information we still needed from various places, but we at least knew we had those benefits because they were on our register.
And then did you also provide a breakdown in terms of the percentages as Fabio had designated in his 2017 benefits percentages for all the beneficiaries, including the defendant and his 3 children.
I did, and that was provided by Tracy for me because she knew the master policy and his benefit elections.
All right. And did you indicate or explain to the defendant the way that benefits were allocated in terms of things such as life insurance and death and dismemberment policies?
Yes.
And did the defendant say anything to you with respect to the documentation when you provided it to her on February 9th?
Objection, no foundation date, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Go ahead.
She was very pleased. She, she said to me, Fabio's a good man. She never realized he took care of these things and how nice it was to take care of his kids as well. So she was very pleased to hear it. She said she didn't know any of these things. She said Fabio didn't really have her or let her do any of the books. So he kept it to himself, so she seemed very surprised about them.
So she told you that she didn't have any idea or she didn't know what benefits Fabio had?
Yes.
Overruled.
Yes?
She did.
And she also told you that it wasn't her that did the books, it was Fabio, and he kept that from her?
Correct.
And did you also create a document, a 4-page document that contained, again, some of the information that we see on 102, your estimated benefits, along with a breakdown of benefits, a more detailed document?
I did.
Your Honor, I have a 4-page document labeled Fabio's salary and benefits estimation. May it be marked as People's 103.
Yes.
Showing you People's 103, starting with the front page. Is this a document that you created and provided to the defendant?
I did.
And did it start out at the top with your contact information, phone number, email, as well as Janet's?
Yep, I wanted to ensure Monica had personal access to me as well as Janet, my senior HR person. So that's my email addresses. Yep, all of this.
And you laid out in here that the company is agreeing to continue salary for 6 months.
Correct.
Okay. And did you also include in this document a breakdown of Fabio's life insurance, supplemental policies, and the amounts?
I did.
Okay. Did you also include what the guaranteed minimum would be, which you've documented here as a minimum of one?
That's the sum of those 3, and the one was still to be confirmed by the insurer, so yes.
A minimum of 1.187 million?
Yes. 1.188.
Okay. And also on this document, did you provide contact information for MetLife as well as the policyholder for the accidental death?
Yes.
And a breakdown of what accrued vacation was, as well as his 401k that was being administered by Charles Schwab, as well as any RSUs that you were writing off the car loan, all the things that you've just spoken about.
I did.
And
I put the contact details there because some of the things, while I knew their amounts or knew about them, she had to claim them herself, so I couldn't call the insurer.
And on the following page, is this a document from Fabio's benefit selections for 2017 plan year in terms of his life insurance as well as ADD and the breakdown by individual, by beneficiary.
Correct.
The third page, did that also include, did you include information about P&G benefits, Fabio's prior employer, along with contact information for the defendant regarding Fabio's stock options, profit sharing plan, and things of that nature?
That's information I got from P&G when I worked with them in Cincinnati and Toronto.
And on the fourth page, did that also include documentation that you obtained from P&G Canada regarding Fabio's ISOP, his International Stock Ownership Plan?
Yep.
What else? Do you want the plates here? Showing you what was previously marked as People 75. Is this a document that you created or not?
No, I don't recognize that.
On one of the occasions that you went to meet with the defendant at her home, did she have someone there with her?
There was always people around, her sister, but I believe once we met, her lawyer was there as well.
And do you recall her name?
I don't. I should, but we had some phone calls and stuff. It's probably in my notes, but
Okay.
I need to be refreshed on that.
Did she send you a series of emails, this lawyer that the defendant had hired?
She did.
Your Honor, I have an email chain between Henry Meyer and Janice Lee Shen. May it be marked, please, as People's Exhibit 104.
Yes.
Showing you Exhibit 104. Do you recall receiving a series of emails from Monica's lawyer who was at her home by the name of Janice Lee Shen?
One of the objections at her home at the time of the sent
And now at the time, cost of speculation.
Is this the same lady that was at the home when you went to meet with Monica?
This is the same, yeah.
And did
I
she...
misunderstood, counsel. He said at her home. It sounded like the email was generated from the attorney's home, and I think that's what counsel had in mind as well, unless I'm wrong.
No.
Okay. When you went to the defendant's home, did she have a lawyer with her by the name of Janice Lee Shen?
She did on one occasion, as far as I remember. Yeah.
And subsequent to going to the defendant's home, did Ms. Shen send you some emails?
She did.
And does this document, what you see here in Exhibit 104, contain some of those emails that you received from Ms. Shen?
Yes.
And did she refer to the fact that she had had a conversation with you?
She did.
Did she have multiple conversations with you, Ms. Shen?
There were several. I couldn't put a number on it, but certainly more than one.
And what did these conversations pertain to?
A lot of it was about, as far as I recall, mostly the life insurance and the progress on getting it paid.
Okay. And were you working with Tracy Rakovich in New York in order to supply the information necessary to submit the claim, the insurance claim
Yes.
that was made by the defendant? Yes?
Yes.
And once you sent the information to Tracy Rakovich, at that point, was your responsibility for the life insurance portion complete?
Yes, I couldn't do anything more because it's through the insurer and Monica.
Which is a third party?
Correct.
Okay.
MetLife.
MetLife. Yet, you continue to receive communications from Ms. Shen
I did.
regarding why it was taking so long to pay out the life insurance.
I did. I explained again that it's an independent third party. It's not part of us. We have no influence on them, and it's a policy matter. I'll probably use nicer words than that.
And after collecting, as you said, all the information from the defendant and handing it over or sending it to Ms. Rakovich in New York, and she then processing the claim and sending it to MetLife, did you also receive various calls and complaints from the defendant?
I did.
Okay. Can you describe that?
Again, it came. It was about the speed of payments and responsiveness. You know, it started off very nice and pleasant, and but I would say it ramped up. They got more aggressive. I think I used the word harassing me. I mean, she was hassling me, pushing very hard, and accusing me of somehow ignoring it or not processing it quick enough.
Yet you had done all the portion of the policy, whatever work you needed to do was out of your hands.
Yeah, and I'd explained the way the policy works, and I suppose I got irritated because of the nature of attacks on me when I thought, boy, I've done quite a lot for you and your family. So at some point you start thinking that way.
Okay. In other words, the fact that you had, along with other members of the leadership team, put into practice new policies to benefit her and her family.
Yeah, the main, I mean, the practical concern I have, I understand the, you know, there's costs and challenges with losing your partner, but for the time being at least, until the end of June, it's as if nothing had financially had happened because Fabio continued to, she continued to receive his salary, which I'd set up until the end of June. So as a minimum, she had continuation of income.
Yet, as you said, the defendant began to harass and hassle you.
Yeah, simply said I was ignoring, not responding, being too slow.
And none of that, in terms of the processing of the claim, was within your control. Is that what you're saying?
No. And of course, my wish is to expedite it as soon as possible under the circumstances.
Did you explain to the defendant that it was up to the insurance company when they paid out the claim?
Overruled.
Did you explain to the defendant that the insurance company was going to require clearance from law enforcement before they paid out under these circumstances, meaning because Fabio had been murdered?
Same ruling.
Well, yes, and basically that is information that I believe Tracy had told me anyway, how the policy worked.
That's what he explained to the witness, to the defendant. It's overruled.
And were you also contacted by law enforcement?
I was.
Okay. And despite all of this, did the defendant also begin to start harassing or hassling your subordinate, Janet?
Objection on cause for speculation.
Sustained.
Were you aware of calls and text messages based on being present when they came in?
I was, and Janet showed me some text she received and spoke about it. So we were a little, well, I'll speak for myself, but we were exasperated by it.
And in terms of some of the claims the defendant was making that you weren't being responsive, were you unresponsive? Or were those claims false?
They were false. I mean, I thought I'd be gone above and beyond to sort things out, so it was irritating.
Would it be fair to say that you explained and discussed the procedure and the process for a life insurance payout on at least 4 different occasions to the defendant?
Yes, and it was in the documentation I gave her as well in terms of who to contact and so on.
during the conversations that you had with the defendant as well as her estate attorney, Ms. Shen, was the overall tone of those conversations the fact that there was an urgent need for the life insurance to be paid out?
Speculation would be sustained on that ground.
Was there some urgency expressed to you by the defendant in terms of the payout of the life insurance?
Not a lot of this.
Every interaction progressively got more, was pressing harder to get speed of payment, and hence the frustration of why it was going so slowly, and ultimately apparently maybe not doing enough to make it happen.
And were you asked, despite your explanation of the fact that it wasn't within your control, were you asked by the defendant to call LAPD?
Yes, I was. That rings a bell. Yep.
And when you did so, did that do anything to speed up the process of the life insurance payment?
No.
Did you explain that clearance from law enforcement to the defendant's lawyer was a necessity or a standard practice in a homicide case?
Yes, because that's what I've been informed.
By the LAPD?
No, yes.
And did you also explain that to the defendant?
I did.
Despite that, did the defendant continue to contact you and ask you to expedite the insurance payment process?
Yes.
During this same period of time when you were being hassled and harassed by the defendant and her lawyer regarding the payout of the life insurance proceeds, were you aware or were you aware of the social media posts the defendant was placing on her Instagram account?
Objection, that's argumentative.
So overruled.
I've seen the posts, absolutely. They were either seen by me or shown to me, because it was a big deal in the organization.
And in terms of those Instagram posts relating to the defendant's alleged misery over the loss of her husband, did that make you feel sorry for her?
No more than I felt from the get-go, because it's a terrible thing. I had huge empathy. It's hard to imagine yourself going through that, so absolutely. Which
And
is
yet-
why we went to the extent of trying to help her in every which way.
And yet, despite that, what MetLife did with the insurance payout was beyond your control.
Yes. But I took some comfort that we continued the salary in the meantime, so she at least was getting income.
So you didn't really see the urgency as she did.
No.
Sustained.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayo. Did you testify before a grand jury in this case?
I did.
And we're going back several years, back to probably 2017. Remember that?
I do.
Okay. But I take it that's the only other time you've testified about this case other than today.
Yes.
And at that time, I take it your memory about these events was likely better than it is today, 6, 7 years later.
That would be expected. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. Do you remember testifying before the grand jury about how many conversations you say you had with Monica relative to her request for the insurance proceeds?
I don't remember the number.
Do you remember that question being asked?
I don't actually.
Do you remember responding?
Counsel,
Page,
you reckon to it, please?
I'm sorry, 527, lines 5 through 11.
Are you going to show it to counsel before you read it?
I'm just going to ask him if this, if he recalls these questions and answers.
Objection.
No.
All right? And
No foundation.
If I may approach.
Yes, of course.
Mr. Meyer, I want you to take a look without reading out loud. What appears in this transcript, I want to make sure I get it right. Lines 5 to 14. Just read it to yourself if you would.
Again, what page, counsel?
527.
Page 527.
That's what it says at the top of the transcript.
Yep.
Okay. And reading that over, would that refresh your memory as to the question and answer that you gave at the grand jury?
It's similar to what I said earlier.
Okay. Well, at that time, you said you were asked approximately how many conversations would you say you had with Monica relative to her request for his insurance proceeds? And your answer was probably all in all about 3 to 4 conversations. 3 of those were visits to her home. You remember that question and answer?
I don't, but the context is familiar, so yes.
Okay.
I mean, there
wanna
were
explain?
exchanges, we had calls, we had texts, we had visits, so yeah.
Calls and texts you counted as visits or not?
Interactions.
Okay. So was it correct that, as you recalled at that time, it was probably about 3 or 4 conversations? 3 of those were visits to her home?
Yes.
Okay. And each of those conversations had to do with the issue involving life insurance, correct?
Life insurance was part of it,
Okay.
because it was a raft of benefits and
Okay.
support.
It had to do with the support that Tony was given to her as a result of the death of her husband.
Correct.
And at this time, I might as well ask, I take it he was a valued employee
It was highly valued.
and loved by all.
That's absolutely.
Okay. Which made the loss even more heartbreaking for you and the company. Is that a fair statement?
It was just the circumstances and the personality, everything. Of course, it's
And the fact that he was killed, he was murdered.
of course.
Okay. Did that, in part, result in this offer or change in policy to allow his salary and his benefits, health benefits and so forth to the family to continue?
It did.
This had not previously been the policy of Cody.
Correct.
Had there ever been a tragic death like this in your experience while working there?
No.
Okay. So this obviously was the first time for something as terrible as this.
And hence the need for different policies.
Yes. And you took into account that if the change had not occurred, the murder occurred on January 23rd, 17, by the end of that month, all of these benefits would have stopped.
Correct.
Okay. No salary, no health insurance, no pension, no anything, correct?
By the end of the month, because his death was during the month, it continues to the end of the month, but technically end of the month, yes.
So you're talking about 8 days. Is that right? You first learned about Fabio Sementilli's death the day of the death. Is that what you recall?
Yes.
Okay. And where were you?
I'd left the office. My memories, I think I was in Home Depot.
Okay. You were in Woodland Hills, was your office?
Woodland Hills, yep.
Okay. Did you know where Fabio lived?
I did not. I've never been to his home. I knew he lived in Woodland Hills, however, because he just bought a house a couple of years back.
Had you been to the house
I had
previously?
not, no.
Okay. And was it your desire then, or your decision to go there that night to lend whatever support and condolences you could?
One does what you have to, right? My CEO called me. He said he had heard a text message, I think, from someone in New York that said something about Fabio's death. We couldn't contact him, so we said we'd go to his home. And the CEO knew where he lived, and I accompanied him along with a couple of other people.
The CEO was Saul.
Saul,
His last name,
Sal Missouri.
Missouri.
Salvatore Missouri.
Okay, so he had testified in this case before. Is that the same one?
I haven't been following.
Very good.
I'll
Just saying.
withdraw. You knew at that time that Fabio had been killed, correct?
I did not. See, that's why we went to the home, because we heard something was going on, so we went to see the wife. When I got there, we were assaulted by TV and police everywhere.
Okay, figuratively, I hope
Figuratively.
Certain legal
In
term.
this context, yes. We were confronted by one of them.
So you really learned for the first time when you got to the scene that something as terrible as a killing had occurred,
Yes.
and that he was dead.
Yes. I knew he was dead, and we'd been told there was a murder. I think that we spoke to a neighbor or the police or something. And so the police let us through because once we identified ourselves, they let us go to the house.
You knew where to go, or did
I followed Sal.
okay. So obviously he appeared to know where to go. Is that correct?
Yes.
So maybe I missed something. When did you actually learn that Fabio was dead?
Well, it started off with my CEO speculating with me that it possibly, he'd heard something.
Okay.
I came back to the office, it was about 7 in the evening, then with him, and I think it was our head of finance, Bob Lucian at the time, and David Diaz. We then went to the home, not all in the same car, and the police, I believe it was the police that confirmed it, and then there was also a neighbor who was helping things, and she was quite graphic, and she'd spoken about cleaning up and this and that. So it was explained to us.
Okay. And you never got actually into the house.
No,
You were stopped outside, correct?
correct.
And the first person you contacted you was appeared to be a neighbor, close friend, so forth. Did the name Deborah Obad ring a bell?
That does, yep.
Okay. Did you see Monica?
Not immediately. I believe she came across from the neighbor's house, and then I saw her briefly.
Okay. Did she appear to be then coming out of the neighbor's house when you first saw her?
I believe so, yep. I can't remember if it was next door across the road, but she certainly came. She didn't come from inside the house.
Okay. You learned later that's where she had been taken with the family and so forth.
Well, I'm going to object that. It seems that's not.
What is this thing?
Was she alone or was she with somebody?
She was accompanied by the neighbors. I don't recall anyone else.
Okay. Did you recognize her?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you approach her?
Well, she approached us. We were stood on the porch.
Okay. And how would you describe her demeanor?
Well, as I'd expect, she seemed pretty upset and traumatized.
I take it you didn't have a conversation with her at that time for that reason. Is that correct?
No, we were fact-finding. We were just finding out what was going on, and that was it.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, did you hug her? Did she hug you? Anything of that nature?
I don't remember it, but the beauty business is full of hugs, so I assume it may have happened. I don't know.
Very well. So who did you speak with first, if anyone, to actually have a conversation about what was going on?
I'm going to object, Your Honor, vague as to what point in time.
It's overruled.
You mean at that night?
After you, I take it you didn't have a conversation with her in light of the physical condition she was in, correct?
Correct.
So did you speak to someone else, or did someone else approach you and start a conversation?
I think I was pretty much joined at the hip with Sal
Okay.
and Bob Lucian, and we were informed. I can't remember if it was them. I do know the neighbour gave us a lot of detail. For example, the neighbour said she had cleaned up a lot of blood in the home, and worried about the kids and this and that. So, but the net of it is we knew he had been killed.
Okay. Did you learn anything else while you were there concerning what? Well,
That is sustained.
concerning what you testified about here today, did you learn anything else that night? Anyone talk to you about helping out, supplying information to Monica if she needed help, anything of that nature?
No, I don't. I think just as it unfolded, because I wasn't close. I mean, HR wasn't close to anyone. You keep your distance, right? But of course, in our discussions, we'd learned it's not just Monica. There were two daughters. We'd heard, I think, that one of the daughters had seen were the first on site. So I don't know.
It calls for a narrative that includes hearsay.
The narrative is sustained.
Did you see the daughters there that night?
I don't recall it. No. In fact, I didn't.
Okay. How long were you there, Mr. Mayor?
If it was half hour to 45 minutes maximum, I mean, a lot of it was waiting to be cleared to go through because the police had to go back and forth and speak to. So it took some time. I think on the doorstep, I was probably there for 15 minutes.
Okay. And can you briefly tell us what you did during those 15 minutes other than what you've already testified to?
I think briefly I was processing what had happened. This was, it looked like a fiction unfolding, so yeah.
And were you getting information from anyone specifically, officer, fireman, neighbor, anyone, if you recall?
Well, apart from curiosity, I mean, nothing specifically that I needed. It's just what the hell happened here.
And who did you talk to about that, if you remember?
I don't recall anything.
Was it an officer fireman, someone on duty, or was it a civilian neighbor, for instance?
I know the fire guys or some authority told us where to park. The police were back and forth letting us through. But I do recall speaking with the neighbors. The neighbor that was supporting her at the time, I think, and I believe her husband might have been with, but I...
After you spoke with that person, whoever it was, and were you able to, I take it you at some point had to leave the scene because you weren't going to obviously be able to get through and go into the house or anything like that, correct?
Well, there was nothing for me to do, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So the reason you went, if I could ask, was it to lend your assistance, pay your condolences, or just to find out what the heck happened?
When we heard about it, we weren't sure what happened. He was a senior executive in the organization. I was with my CEO. We wanted to confirm. I would say we were very close as a team. Obviously, Monica was well known to Sal, and they were I think they were friends from Canada even. And so people were close, people were traumatized. And yes, it was fact-finding. And of course, then the immediate aftermath is you thinking about how to deal with it in the organization, because you have to communicate, you have to share this information.
So a lot of things going
And
on.
the news was breaking, so we had what I'd call a crisis meeting to figure out how we handle it.
Did Sal appear to have some knowledge of the neighbor and speak to the neighbor you're talking about
He
himself?
spoke with me. Whether he had knowledge of them, I don't know.
Okay. And then you left, I take it. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You've discussed what your role was at that point, and if I could summarize it, it was basically to do whatever you could on behalf of Cody and its ownership and employees to help out Monica and her family. Is that a fair statement?
Well, there's two things, right? There's that, and of course the other piece is you're thinking of the organization. It's my job, and we've got to manage the aftermath of that. So both of those.
You had to inform the other employees what had happened.
Correct.
How did you do that?
Excuse me?
Irrelevant.
Sustained.
At some point, you've testified to deciding to take some steps financially from the company to assist Monica and her family, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And whatever those steps were, it did not involve communicating with Monica at that time, correct?
Well, we had nothing to say at the time.
Okay. You had nothing to say until you and the company had made a decision as to what to do.
There are some benefits that she's completely, in normal circumstances, entitled to, life insurance, whatnot. That's not in my control. The extra pieces of making exceptional treatment for her and ultimately requiring policy to support that, that was the extra stuff I did.
Okay.
So, for example, the continuation of pay, continuation of health care, the loan for the car, etc., etc.
Was that your decision to make, or did you have to discuss it with higher-ups or other personnel at the company?
We all have bosses, but it was my initiative, I'd certainly say, and I'm very happy to have done that because I think it sets a good groundwork for the future.
And Ms. Rakovich was part of that and agreed?
Yep.
When was that decision made in relationship to the night you went to the scene?
It actually moved very fast, credit to Coty. So I would say in the next week or two, we got agreements on continuation of the salary and so on. So it was very fast.
Okay.
The subsequent work was writing it as policy.
But since by the end of the month of January, typically, if things stayed the same, all of these benefits would have run out. I take it that you made sure they did not run out.
The salary is not benefit, right? Salary is salary, but
Healthcare.
Healthcare, yes.
In the normal situation, that would cease in a short period of time, end of the month, correct?
Correct.
That had been the policy before then.
Yep.
Okay.
Same as if someone resigns or fired or whatever.
Exactly. But at least in that case, there's some advance notice. This was no
I
advance.
object, it's irrelevant.
Sustained.
All right. So whenever the decision was made, how was it communicated to Monica?
Once we knew, I told her.
In person, on the phone,
I think there was
email?
a meeting in early February, the 9th or something, where I went to her home with my senior HR person, Janet Kova. We explained that to her. I gave her some paperwork. Unlike many HR, I did it in an Excel because I like Excel and laid it out so it was easy to read and easy to understand what the benefits are and might be, because some things I didn't know, as well as contact details. And I even went as far to say who would get what in terms of Fabio's choices for his benefits, i.e. What percentage of the insurance goes to, life insurance goes where.
Okay. And you did that because, as far as you knew, she had no idea of what those benefits were.
Why don't you call it
Sustained.
You did it to make sure she knew what the benefits were at the time that you spoke to her. You wanted her to know everything that was coming to her as a result of the policy. Let me just finish, and the new policy.
Empathetically, if I was going through this, and that's my job to put myself in someone else's shoes, you are very confused at the time, and everything's a worry and everything's so I wanted to lay it out, not only tell her, but lay it out in writing so she could, because if I tell her, she's going to forget it the next day if it wasn't. So I told her and wrote it down for her.
And did you see her in person on that occasion?
I did.
Did you go to her residence?
Yes.
Did anyone accompany you?
Janet Kova did.
Okay. And she again is?
So Janet Kova is my senior HR person. We have what we call business partners in HR, and parts of the organization are allocated to a business partner. The education function that Fabio worked in was one of her responsibilities, so she accompanied me throughout, and she was my senior person.
Is this something that you've done before, Mr. Mayor, in other situations, or is it fair to say this is the first situation like this that you had experienced?
I think if I explain an HR job to anyone, won't believe me. So I don't talk about, but a murder, first time ever. I've seen it all in my 30 plus years, never seen this.
Okay. So again, you went out there and you provided her with a document that I believe was shown to you on the Elmo there by the prosecutor, which spelled out the benefits that you've described quite detailed.
Yes, it was an Excel spreadsheet, line by line, column by column, it had it all in.
And had you made an appointment to see her ahead of time?
Objection irrelevant.
Sustained.
After you did that, gave her the paper, did you discuss with her at all how or what she had to do in order to file a claim for the insurance that was spelled out on the 4-page document?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you tell her?
The details I can't remember, but essentially she had to get a death certificate. She had to give it to the insurer. That's their trigger for them to start processing the claim. I say processing because it's not, I get this and we pay you. They have their own processes, but I explained how to do it and who to contact. So she had those details, and not just for the life insurance, for all the benefits across both the U.S. and also in Canada.
Okay, and did she appear to understand what you were telling her?
Yeah, she did. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, she had someone with her as well. I think the lawyer on one occasion was with, and it was written down, so I have to assume she understood it.
You said on one occasion, her lawyer, can you recall whether that was the second occasion that you saw her, the ninth being the first, or was it a subsequent?
At least the second, certainly not the first.
Not the first, okay. And the lawyer was assisting her in dealing with the legal matters involved in the case.
I'm going to object. It would call for speculation.
Sustained, that's formed.
You interacted with the attorney, correct?
I did.
And you told the attorney what was necessary, is that correct?
Correct.
And one of the things that had to be obtained was a death certificate, is that right?
Ask and answer.
I'll
Not
allow
by
it.
me.
But I'm allowing this, counsel. Be careful.
I think fundamentals of insurance, life insurance claim is a death certificate.
Okay, okay. And did you tell her anything else that she had to do that you recall relating to the insurance involving the police department, for instance?
Objection vague as to whether now we're talking about the defendant or her lawyer.
I'm assuming it's the defendant. Overruled.
Let me ask you this, when you were talking and providing this information, was Monica Sementilli with the attorney?
Yes.
So they were together?
Yep.
Okay. And did you bring up the issue of the police department having to prepare some kind of report because of the nature of the death?
I think that's the instruction I got from Tracy at the time, I believe. But yes, I do recall telling her that.
And you didn't know that specifically until Tracy had advised you, is that right?
Someone had told me to do it, but I didn't know. First time I've done one of these, so
Sure.
yes.
And what exactly did you explain to her in that regard, which I'm assuming is what you had first learned from Tracy?
I think they had to do some kind of process and clear something before a payment could be, or a claim could be properly processed.
That's
In the case of a murder, I think
Okay.
that's the...
that's how you explained it?
Hopefully I did it a bit better than that, but yes.
Oh, okay. Whatever you were informed, that's how you explained it to her.
Mm-hmm.
Some type of police report clearing somebody, correct?
Yep.
Did you know at the time that among the beneficiaries was not just Monica Sementilli, but her children, Jessica and Isabella?
Absolutely, and that was in my first explanation to her, because I broke the life insurance out in the Excel sheet, in the columns, all the beneficiaries, including the percentages they were entitled to as Fabio had designated them.
So those were designations by Fabio himself to Cody prior to his
Correct.
death.
So when you sign up for your benefits, one of your things is life insurance, and you have the opportunity to say what percentage goes to which dependent.
And without putting that back on the screen, it had to do with, I think, 45% Monica and 25% or 20%, something like that, to each of the children. Is that correct?
Each of the daughters, and there was a son in Canada as well, so there was a percentage for him. I can't remember if it was equal or what, but there was.
So all three of the children, the two that were Monica and Fabio's, and one from his previous marriage.
Yes.
Okay. Did you know whether or not any of those payments were made by Cody or by the insurance company, MetLife? Eventually?
No, I don't know eventually.
Sitting.
It also calls for speculation.
Sitting.
Did you ever follow up with Monica on whether or not she had, in fact, done this and taken the steps to file the claim with MetLife?
I'd put it the other way round. She was following up with me
Okay.
regularly, and I re-explained to her what she had to do to make the claim, and that I could not do anything about it. So there was follow-up, but not by me.
No. There was frustration on her part, correct? That you understood that?
Absolutely, as it was becoming mine.
Okay. And some of the frustration initially was directed at Cody because she didn't know why this wasn't going through, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And among the 3 or 4 times that you guys talked about this, you eventually got through to her that this was not anything that you could do. She had to deal directly with MetLife. Is that right?
Objection calls for speculation, not being true.
You did say earlier that you made it clear that whatever you could do, you had done. Correct?
I did.
Okay. And frankly, in terms of your frustration, you were thinking as well, my God, we've done an awful lot for you already with the salary and the health benefits, as well as the other things that you testified to, correct?
Yeah, I don't want to make it. I have to be detached from these things. It was frustrating.
Okay. But you understood what she was going through as well.
Of course.
And during the course of this time period, there were several events that took place at which Fabio was honored or memorialized in some way. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. One of them was there in Woodland Hills area.
Correct.
Is that right?
At the office.
Okay. And one out at a funeral home or someplace?
There were several events. There was one at our home, at her home.
Let me stop you there.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask the witness to be able to answer the question.
You can finish the question.
Well, there was one at her home. We had one in the. It was delayed. We had one in the Woodland Hills office. That was a organization event. We had a bunch of guests come and a lot of the key people in the industry. There was also an event in Canada where he was ultimately buried.
Okay. And did you attend all these events?
No, I didn't go to Canada.
The one in Canada, was that his formal funeral there or something honoring him? Do you remember?
Your Honor, again, based on the witness's answer, is speculation.
Counsel, you're making a speaking objection.
Sorry, objection, speculation.
Sitting.
Did you attend any events in Canada?
No.
We'll take our afternoon recess for 15 minutes. The evidence applies. See you back here in 15 minutes. Mr. Sementilli, defendants present, all counsel present, jury, and also present. It's getting a little crowded outside. Not too bad. Still crowded, but we may end a little early. So we'll see how it goes. Ms. Mayo, you're still under oath, and you may continue.
I'm going to put up on the Elmo Exhibit 102. Do you recognize this?
I do?
This was prepared by you for Monica Sementilli, is that correct?
Yes.
And it's entitled Estimated Benefits, and you're the author. Is that right?
Correct.
I believe you testified that this was at a meeting you had with her on February 9th. Is that correct?
I'm trying to remember, but I gave two documents to her. I think the first meeting, this is a lot of question marks in it, right? I don't know the details. It's estimated. The second meeting with her was, I provided a lot more detail in terms of how to make the claims and so I think there were two documents. So I can't recall exactly when I gave it.
Okay.
One of those two meetings.
The second meeting was the one where you were more detailed.
Yes.
It wasn't estimates anymore. You had made decisions, Cody had made decisions about his salary, the medical, and so forth and so on, correct? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Do you know how long after the first meeting was the second meeting? It was how long it took you to finalize a lot of
It was an effort. I think I met this first time after the murder, the 26th of January, and I think this was the 9th of February, something like that.
the second meeting with her?
I believe that was the 9th of February.
And the first meeting after the night of the incident, 102, when you did the estimated?
Possibly the 26th. It was the following week. So, I think it was the 26th.
Do you have an actual date in mind when the policy was changed by Cody to extend the salary benefits and so forth?
Well, there were two things. The decision was to give the go-ahead that we could do it for Fabio.
Yes.
The second one was to write the policy into a formal document that becomes part of the handbook of the organization or the policy document. So I'm knowing any bureaucracy, it probably takes a bit longer to get a policy documented. But I don't know the date.
And when you were able to tell her that at least as far as Fabio was concerned, or she was concerned, in period 103, that was, what, 2 weeks later after the night you were there, or
I could
what?
only tell her what I could confidently assure she could get. Yes,
And that was that February 9th?
I believe so.
Okay. You mentioned something concerning, well, let me put up on here well, I've got it up here. You talked about stock options at some point, is that correct?
There were various forms of those, yep.
Did you have those mentioned here on your, okay. Take a look at the bottom area here where I'm quoting where it says restricted units estimated value based on stock price 125.17 of $3,995.
Yep. Yep.
Where did you get that figure from?
Those were provided, I think they were P&G benefits, and I think they were provided by the Canada HR folks.
Okay, but you obviously did some research to find out, first of all, that there were options at all, correct?
I did some considerable research on getting everything defined, yep.
Did you know how many options there were? Or just the value?
The value.
Okay.
And again, they subject to the stock price, right?
Yes, obviously.
So that was just the estimated price at the stock price is quoted as the 25th of January 2017.
Okay, so whatever the stock price was, did you know the number of options they had, number of shares?
I dare say, but I couldn't say for sure. I must have got that number from somewhere.
But if you multiplied that by the stock price, you got that
Correct.
3,995.
Yep.
Okay. Did you know, during your research at that time, were you made aware of any other stock options other than those that existed for Fabio and Monica?
They are They're stock-related benefits, right? Because some are, they have savings plans. They all, some of them are retirement vehicles.
Okay.
So you buy stock and you own them and it grows or whatever with, to enable retirement. Stock options are given as recognition for company performance or division performance or something like that. So it's a variety of things.
If you're lucky enough to be employed by Google, you can make a lot of money in a stock option.
That's right.
This, again, was based on the date that you, of what the stock was on the date that you provided that information, correct?
Yes.
And then it's got Cody 401k savings, $13,000 to date. Is that a retirement account?
401k is the federal savings plan that companies have. Yep.
And that, again, was the value at the time that you prepared this form. Is that right?
I can't say specifically that's the value I had that I provided. It could be more, it could be less, but that's what I've understood it was.
Now, when it came to filing a claim with MetaLife, didn't you instruct Monica to fill it out and provide it to you, and you would submit it to MetaLife? MetLife, I'm sorry.
MetLife, I don't recall that. We may have given her the form. Janet Cover, my senior HR person, was probably helpful in that matter. It's probably better to ask her. I don't recall doing that.
So you're not sure whether or not Cody submitted a form from Monica to MetLife or whether she was instructed to do it herself?
I don't know. I do know that we gave her the contact details to call MetLife, and there was a form to fill in and the requirements, so we explained that process to her. Who filed it doesn't sound like we personally do it for someone. That doesn't sound right for insurance. It's a personal matter, but maybe.
Would Janet be the one to?
She may be.
Okay. And did she have to contact MetLife to get the form, or did you or Cody provide the form for her, if you recall?
I don't recall.
Were you at all texting with Monica at any time during the course of your communications with her following the death of Fabio?
I believe there was some text, yes.
Do you recall if you were using the app WhatsApp or some other app? Do you recall?
I don't know.
So, Rule.
Don't know.
At that time, were you using WhatsApp?
I can't remember. I should know. My company runs the internet for the world, but no, I don't remember.
Okay, you remember using WhatsApp?
No. But I have used it, but I don't recall using it then. Probably because I'm foreign, I might make cheap phone calls home and at the time, so possibly I was using it.
Now, the salary that you agreed to pay for 6 months was the salary that he was earning at the time of his death, correct?
Yes.
Would you agree that he was a very successful employee with a great future?
Objection. Cumulative.
I'll allow this. Although you're testifying, counsel. When you say the words, do you agree,
All right.
you are testifying.
Was he a very valued employee
He was a valued employee for sure.
and a successful one?
He was successful, yep.
And if he had stayed with Cody, he would have had salary increases every year.
Why do I object? That would call for speculation.
Sustained.
Would his salary have been renegotiated yearly or on any regular basis?
It's not negotiated, it's reviewed annually, subject to performance and obviously the company's ability to pay.
And the company was doing well at the time, correct?
It was okay. I wouldn't say it was doing fantastic because it was a new acquisition. There was a lot of changes, but it was good enough.
Okay.
We weren't laying people off.
He had a good future.
I'd maybe.
Sustained.
And if Fabio Sementilli had lived and continued to be employed by Cody, he would have the opportunity to earn increased amounts of salary options and things of that nature,
Objection
correct?
calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Each year, his salary options, everything else would have been reviewed, subject to renewing his contract for another year, correct?
Objection cumulative.
Until ruled.
He was an at-will employee, right? So I couldn't talk about his long term, but yes, it would be subject to review because you have to attract and retain people in an organization. So like any employee.
Was he someone at the time of his death, was someone that you believe would have been retained by Cody?
Objection speculation.
It's irrelevant.
Mr. Mayor, when was the last time that you met with Monica Sementilli concerning anything involving Fabio or life insurance, if you recall?
I don't recall if the February meeting was the 9th was the last, or maybe the March. I don't recall. There were other interactions in terms of emails and I think a phone call as well.
But the figures that we have before you that I've shown you were the latest figures that you showed to Monica concerning Fabio's benefits and the decisions that Cody had made in terms of salary and all the rest. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know whether or not any of the stock options were ever exercised by Monica Sementilli?
I don't know anything she did with any of those. There are beneficiary allowances when someone dies, but I don't know if she did those.
All right.
In fact, that's done centrally in the HQ, so no.
You were still working at Cody when she was arrested in June of 2017, is that correct?
Yes,
And you were aware of that event, correct?
I was.
At that time, were you aware of any options, stock options that she had exercised up to that date?
I would never be aware of those because you exercise them privately and you do whatever the stock thing is, so I just wouldn't know.
Well, the company would have a record,
The
obviously.
company would, and but it's
Not HR.
well, someone in HR, but it would be their specialist area, not local HR looking after the operational side of the business.
And do you know at the time of her arrest whether any life insurance had even been paid to her children?
No,
Objection irrelevant.
The answer's already in.
Your answer is no, you don't know.
I don't know.
You didn't check.
Nope.
Objection irrelevant.
Was there any other, I'm sorry, was there any other form that you prepared concerning benefits and so forth involving Fabio Sementilli other than the ones that we've shown you today?
I'm not aware of any. No.
So whatever was in effect by the time you gave her the second document. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. I have nothing further.
Any redirect?
No.
Thank you, sir. You are excused. I'm thinking. We're going to adjourn. The extra half hour is not going to make that much difference in this case, and I want you safe. I'm getting fond of you, and I'm already planning our Christmas dinner together. So we'll be in recess tomorrow at 9 o'clock. The admin applies not to discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else, form expressing opinions of the causes finally submitted to you.